and then you pay a little bit more. Then there's an apron for the next amount, which is you pay, more than what you're already paying for your LLC to maintain. I think it's smart for Caleb to do this because, A, that you can't lose any money. You're only, whatever you put into the LLC is what you're going to get taxed for. If you say, do not pay back anything, right? And the government tries to go after you. This is a little trick to you business people that are starting self-employment businesses out here. LLC is your friend because even if you can't pay creditors or anything like that back, they can only tax you of what you put into the LLC. They cannot tax your personal belongings, like your house, your vehicle.
Yeah, right. I know that's why we did it like for the Airbnb, because it protects us as individuals. If something happens at the Airbnb, our house, our cars, our personal belongings, they can't come after that. But as far as like for tax purposes, though, in terms of state income tax, would he then only pay state income tax in California when he draws money off of it? Because I take it the way the contract is set up now, he's paying taxes in Illinois, and then California is going to try to get a piece too, right?
Well, if he's a resident of California, is known as a resident, he's 100% taxed for all his income, worldwide income, no matter what. He has to pay taxes.
But he only paid tax one time, right? He's not going to get taxed twice by.
Well, no, he's getting taxed by Illinois, and then he's getting taxed by California right now, right?
Yeah, if he does a dual residency, he'll be taxed by both. You get as a resident, you're taxed 100%.
I guess that's your choice. Yeah.
The other thing that Joe has brought up on previous shows is the jock tax. So he'll be taxed for the jock tax as well. So.
So why the hell would you maintain a residency in California if you're Caleb Williams or Rome Odunze or any NFL player that doesn't play in California? It seems like you're paying a whole extra set of taxes you wouldn't have to pay if you just made your residency in the state you played for your team in, or a state like California, or a state like Texas or Tennessee or Florida.
Well, here's the thing too. What you can do is on your California return, you can claim a credit to the for taxes paid to another state. So you get a credit for any taxes you paid to the other state. So there's a little bit of a benefit there, but at the same time, with the money amount, Caleb is making,
it all screams diva. It all screams diva. Just diva.
Yeah. He's.
Hold on a second, Rob. How does that scream diva when he's trying to figure out?
Bro, he's trying to. Bro, come on,
hold on a second, Rob.
Everyone else,
This is not a diva thing. This is something that every pro athlete or any kind of person who makes a ton of money should think about doing, because what he's doing is trying to say, look, I don't think he's trying to escape paying taxes, because even with the LLC, he's going to pay taxes. What he's trying to do is avoid paying taxes in multiple states, or being, in a sense, any athlete who lives in California as a residency and plays for a professional team in another state is getting double taxed, right? Because even though he claims a credit, if the California tax is more than the state tax and where he earned the money, right? So Illinois is in a tax, let's say, for sake of argument, at 5%. And then California was paying at 6%. So he's going to pay that 5% to Illinois, right? Well, let's just sake of argument. I'm not doing the actual numbers, Joe, okay? He's paying them, let's say, the 5% to Illinois, and then California is like, well, you still owe us another 1%. So he's being taxed by two different states on the same thing and paying taxes in two states for that work. And if it's an away game, now he's paying tax, the jock tax. He's paying that tax in Tennessee, in Washington, Seattle, Illinois, and but as an LLC, Isaac, does he avoid the jock tax too?
No, he doesn't, because the jock tax, actually I'm not quite familiar with, but maybe Joe can shed more light on that. But the jock tax basically is something that he pays as part of the state wide of paying playing in the state where the jock tax is. Now, well, from my understanding, a little bit from the jock tax, it doesn't apply to every state. Like, obviously, it doesn't apply to Florida, Texas.
No, Florida has it. There's 5 states, but Florida's is one of the 5, not one of the 5, I think. I remember.
Oh, really?
Yeah, let me look that
I didn't
up.
know that. Yeah, I mean, I would assume the states that don't have income tax, wouldn't have the jock tax, but I could be wrong on that. I'm not too familiar with that.
The jock tax, like he said, I know Texas doesn't have it, but Florida does.
No. Okay, no, I was wrong. There's no jock tax in Florida, Washington, D.C., Tennessee, and Texas.
Yeah, all those states don't have income tax.
Washington, D.C. doesn't have a stadium, right? I think all the Washington teams do not play in the D.C. The district itself. They play, on. Yeah, so really, the only one there's 4, right? If you go play the Commanders, the Commanders, you do get it. If you go play the Sea Chickens, the Titans, the Texans, the Cowgirls, or any of the Florida teams, you don't pay a jock tax. So yeah, I mean, but I wonder if being an LLC, and Joe, maybe you know this versus Isaac, because I know you know more about the jock tax. If you're an LLC, you get taxed under the jock tax? Because I think the whole idea is the LLC protects you from state taxes. State taxes, would it protect you from, say, the jock tax?
No. The jock tax is because he plays a sport. The jock tax is because he plays a sport. Doesn't matter where you get your income from or how you get your income. The jock tax still happens unless you're in one of the states. And from what I read, it's not that you pay it when you play the away games. It's based off of where your team's base is. So if the Washington Commanders training facility and offices are in Washington, D.C., they don't have a jock tax. You see what I'm saying there?
That makes sense.
So it's based on where home offices is.
Yeah, it's where basically your business is headquartered.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think he's trying to get out of paying the jock tax. Like, I think he understands that he's going to pay the jock tax. But his point was he was trying with the LLC, he was trying to defer his taxes for 10 years because as an LLC, he could defer it for up to 10 years. And, like, the only thing I could think of is that so what he was going to do is take the money that he makes during that 10 years and invest it and grow it to where, like, he'll basically – the growth on that will more than pay his taxes, and then it's like he sort of doesn't really have to pay anything. Right. I mean, he pays, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, like, he's just going to use the money to make money.
Touching the original 40, let's say he makes 40 million, like he's and then he invests that 40 million, and then that 40 million turns into 60 million. Well, now he just pays it out of that extra 20 million, and he gets to keep the original 40 and whatever's left from 20.
Oh, he'd have capital gains tax, so to pay on that though too, wouldn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, he would have to pay capital gains on that, but I think that's 35%, which comes out to about $6 million. But is the rest of it going to equal the 14 million? And even if it does, I mean, let's say it eats the whole 20 million and then it eats 2 million into your 40. You still just walked away with 38 out of $40 million. You know what I mean?
What's up, Yoli?
So let me ask this question though, because obviously now the NFL said no, you can't do this. So who knows if there's more to explore there legally? Because I think there possibly could be with that. But let me do this, and we'll go around the horn on this, and I'll start with you, Joe, because I've got you up front. Do you think what Caleb? Hold on. Good morning, Rob. From work. Do you think what he tries to do there, as far as getting paid as an LLC or a forgivable loan, is something that we might see maybe in other sports, or is smart for him to try to do?
I mean, I don't know his reasoning behind it, like other than like trying to skirt paying certain taxes, obviously, but
trying to game the system.
Hold on, Rob, I'll come in a minute.
He's trying to game the system. I'm not exactly sure like how, You know what I mean? Like I'm not inside his head. I don't know like what his, because he had an idea. You know, he's obviously talked to money people, and you know there's a reason he's asking to do this, because the money people told him, hey, this is going to save you a lot of money in taxes. And I don't know the numbers on that. I think it's smart. I don't think the NFL is going to go for it, and I don't think other sports will go for it, because you know then they're going to get that government crackdown like, hey, you know, you just opened a loophole that we didn't open, and you're allowing your players to not pay taxes.
What do you think, guys?
Open up the NFL to liability.
I'll tell you one thing: whatever he tried to do, California is not going to go for it. I mean, you're going to fight with the FTB, which is the Franchise Tax Board, you know, on trying to not pay tax for earnings in California. And like I said, if you're a resident of California, you're 100% taxed on your worldwide income, no matter how you get it, unearned, earned. It doesn't matter. California wants the piece of the pie, you know, so they'll come after him. He'll be audited a lot, you know, even if you try to defer all your income over to a LLC, there's going to be, they're going to come after it. So, I mean, you can try to finagle your way out of, you know, paying these taxes and deferring your, I mean, the only way you can really do that is possibly deferring your compensation, which is, you know, some people like Otani are trying to do, you know, because, but, you know, there's an accrual system and the cash system. Cash system is when you receive the cash, then you mark it down. The accrual system is you mark it down when you get the cash received. So, you know, depending on what accounting system you use is how you pay your taxes.
So, question though, like, let's say with Otani, you know, I think he did an LLC of some type, maybe as well, or Caleb would say, we're to do with the LLC where the Bears don't pay the player, being Caleb Williams in this case, but they pay the LLC. And let's say he needs to buy, he's going to buy a house. He can take a loan from the LLC, couldn't he? He just says, well, I'm taking a loan from the LLC, right? And it's not compensation. Okay. So that helps.
So creditors, you know, if he takes a loan out of the LLC, right? Creditors can only go after anything he put into it. They can't go after, like for instance, say.
So he doesn't own the house, and the LLC owns the house that he lives in.
Basically, it would be under the LLC name, and I see this a lot of my clients. The house is under the LLC. When you type in, you know what I mean, when you look it up, because property tax is public information. You can go to most property, you know, county taxes and look up your property tax. And a lot of our clients have it under the LLC. And it's smart because, you know, even if you decide to end it and creditors come after you, they can't come after anything other than what you put into the LLC. That's it. I mean, so even if you get like notices that say, hey, you owe this much, you can tear them up and throw them in the trash can. Because they can't come after you for your personal accounts, you know, whatever, you know, properties you have, you know what I mean? If you have a vehicle, they can't come after that. So it's smart business wise, but at the same time, you're going to have to fight tooth and nail with the Franchise Tax Board of California on how to avoid paying these taxes.
So let's go to a fan base that knows a lot about skirting the rules.
Follow up with Isaac. Isaac just like laid down the like.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because like, you know, we use like I have, you know, my wife and I, we have an LLC for our Airbnbs and stuff, but many Americans have an LLC. I'm surprised in one way that we've never heard of this before, you know, for athlete in a contract. So I was a little, so that's why I was happy when Isaac popped in this morning. Oh, great, because this is an Isaac show today. I mean, what do you think though? Players trying to like say, hey, don't pay me, pay my company, and then I'll take a loan against my company. So maybe if I don't want to live in Georgia and I still want to live in South Dakota, I'm not paying double taxed and stuff like that.
Well, I think that's a very smart move. I don't know, because you know you want to save all your money, but Uncle Sam's coming for you,
tax dodger.
Like Uncle Sam's gonna get his money either way. You're not evading it. So That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. If
These
you know
guys-
the NFL would have said no, the government probably would have stepped in and said, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, you can't own a team and play for like not own a team, but divert all your money."
But
here.
but JB, does that really open up? I mean, okay, if he does it and it's legal, the federal government's still going to get their money, from what I understand, from Isaac because of the fees, right? It's just he's not paying a personal income tax at this point. The LLC is what now?
He'd be paying a business tax on
Correct.
the LLC. But
Correct.
here's the same thing. There was something written into the 2020 CBA that all the agents and those lawyers that Caleb hired missed out on, because you wouldn't have to pay jock tax if you took X amount of dollars in sponsorship in lieu of compensation for play, like they set up in 2020. Everybody forgets about this. He could have said, okay, whatever the other business that Hollis owns than the Bears, they could have said, well, why don't we give you a third of your money as salary, lower the cap hit, because that's the max you
I
can
don't
pay.
think McCaskey's own anything besides the Bears, unfortunately.
But I'm just saying, I'm just giving it as a for instance, okay?
Right.
And then say, well, we own Joe Blow's Petroleum here in Illinois, and we're going to give you a 20% stake value, and that's the rest of your income,
Right.
and give you X amount of shares per year, so you're a shareholder. So you're taxed off of shareholders and capital gains that way instead of income. And then that's not subject to jock tax because that's not technically his salary. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a loophole.
I just think it's interesting though that he wanted to be paid as an LLC and not an individual. So the Bears would not be paying Caleb Williams the individual, but Caleb Williams LLC, they'd be paying his company for his services. So he'd be an employee of his services. Who's that?
I heard he has a business name already.
Yeah. So basically, like the Bears. I mean, if you think about the way he's trying to set up with like maybe having his contract be an LLC, the Bears as the contractor would be subcontracting his LLC to fill the quarterback position with him. So, I mean, that in essence, that's what it'd be. And then I can understand, like, okay, I don't want to pay state taxes in 2 states. I can understand trying, so we've talked about on the show, like, when we look at Purdy, whenever he's going to get his contract, he's maybe getting 40% of his contract, 60% of it vanishes into the ether of taxes and fees and whatnot. Right. So I understand why these players are trying to maximize their money, because in your civilian job, for those of you who do work, if you could find a way to keep more of your money and give the government less, I'm sure you would too. So Ken, now New York, another high tax state, right? Like Illinois and California. What do you think of this? I just want to make sure I get around the horn to everyone, so I get everyone's thought on this before we kind of like, not free for all, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Hey, it's Caleb Williams. So you want to give him a little bit of a knock, but I can't even give him a knock for this shit, because if I was in his shoes, I would be trying every loophole possible to try to keep that type of money. Almost $40 million. I wouldn't want to pay as much tax on it as I could.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a Caleb being a diva thing. I think it's Caleb being the smart business person thing, and that's something that could benefit every player in the league if it worked. Right? I mean,
if it worked, you'd be seeing that across the board until the next CBA knocked that out or something like that.
So, Rob, at the end of the day, the NFL said, no soup for you. You can't do this. But I mean, I don't know. We'll see if it ends there, or if there's something that they're private entities, so you kind of, I don't think that you could sue them or anything. But I just think it's interesting that he tried it. I mean, I know you're going to say, well, it's a diva thing, but I mean, dude, you're a business owner.
I understand the business side of it, but this is, it's not just about business. I mean, I understand he's doing his thing, but it's already set up. It just sounds to me like he's cheating, like he's trying to game the system, trying to figure out a loophole so that he can pay less. I get that. Everybody tries to do that, but you're going to live in 2 states. You pay 2 taxes. I'm sorry. I don't have that luxury. And, I could maybe argue it if I did have that luxury, but I do not live. I live in 1 state.
So, okay, let's change it, Rob. Let's say he decides to relocate to Illinois full time. Your company, you obviously have an LLC because you're not stupid and you want to protect yourself. So why shouldn't he do the same thing you do? Or any other player for that?
First of all, it's different. I mean, he's coming out of they already have rules and stuff for this. I just don't understand why he just, from a fan perspective, I just want my player to sign and be ready to go.
Right.
I understand now why he said I have a team of lawyers. He had nothing to do. He just you guys go ahead and make a spectacle of this and do whatever. And it all comes down to just trying to make yourself into some kind of loan so you can save some money on your taxes, but you're really not saving it. You're just paying it later down the line. He's just trying to earn the money off of his money. And I mean, to me, bro, so
what it sounds like to me though, Rob, at the end of the day, I mean, look, I get it. There's a little, he's being a diva. It's distracting, blah, 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 blah. But everything you just said screams business to me, that he's trying to be smart as a business person with his financial earnings from, because football at the end of the day, while it's a sport, it's still a business, as we all know. So, I mean, that's a thing. So from a business perspective, so Isaac, if he goes, let's say he relocates to Illinois, and the LLC thing, I mean, it doesn't change the argument as much. Now, except you get rid of California, but I mean, many Americans who own their own businesses are like LLC. So why would this be different than Joe Blow's Glass Blowing Incorporated, where the owner doesn't take salary, but the LLC makes the money, and he's doing the exact same thing that Caleb was proposing he does with his NFL contract?
Yeah, the other thing is that if he owns a home in California, right, like he has a secondary that's over there, California can take the stance that he's still a resident, and they'll come after you like that. You got to prove without a benefit of a doubt. So I'm being a little, but
so let's say he buys his parents' home and pays for it, right? I mean, right there. Hey, it's their residence, not mine.
Yeah, so, he could put it under his family name, but they still will have to have him prove that he doesn't reside there. He's not coming back there. There's a lot of things that you have to dispute with California.
Okay, so let's say for sake of argument, though, and let's say not Caleb specific, any athlete who, let's say, do this, and they reside in a state. Mm-hmm. This LLC, Floyd, I guess, if you want to call it that, that he just tried with his rookie contract would be no different than any other LLC in America then, would it? I mean, it's no different than if I do it with my Airbnb, if he does it for his NFL contract, except maybe the dollar amounts, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways to go about it. I mean, there's beneficial ways of going about it. You know what is funny about this is that a lot of times where players try to do this, right? They try to get their monetary, wise, monetize themselves in different ways. Like, for instance, the players that Aaron Judge switched his salary to cryptocurrency. He lost a lot of money doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now other players are trying to find different loophole ways that might save them money, but at the same time don't. You know what I mean? Because they're paying different things than they realize, and it adds up to the amount they originally would pay. So the only smart person that did this in sports is Bobby Bonilla. Bobby. You know what I mean?
Right. Getting paid for it for a decade still.
Yeah. The guy gets paid $1.5 million every year until 2035. Like no better setup than that. And tax wise, if he moves to a state, right, that doesn't have much, tax against it, then it benefits him even more because you're paying 100% worldwide income in the state you reside in. And
because I remember when I was living in St. Louis at the time, and when Albert Pujols left,
Albert
you know,
Pujols.
he could have gone to the Marlins or the Angels, and the money I think was about the same. Or let's go back to let's make it football. Adama Sue, when he left Detroit, had multiple places he've gone. He came to Florida, and he said, "No state income tax. I keep all my money here." I mean, that was a big factor when he signed that contract and left Detroit. Was like, I could get, I don't remember what the contract was. Let's say it was $70 million for sake of argument. I could get $70 million from the Bears, or I could get $70 million from the Dolphins. The $70 million from the Dolphins is actually worth more money than it is with the Bears because I'm not paying all this extra tax. So for him, that was a thing of a part of his reasoning why he signed where he signed. With Pujols, he ended up going to Anaheim. I think though the money overcame the taxing because he got paid, wasn't going to get paid much more than the Marlins were going to give him. But I mean, it seems that like I kind of get where Caleb and his team came from trying to save money because I mean we've talked. I know, and I'm gonna throw JB up because I know JB's chomping at the bit here. But I know we've talked many times about, or a couple times about, you know, how much money these players actually get from their contract after taxes and fees and this, that, and the other. So I mean, I'm not upset that, you know, like we said, remember when we were talking, and I'll let you go in a second, JB, was you know, with Caleb's contract, it wasn't going to be about the amount of money he's paid. It was going to be something else. And we all thought, well, it would be the bonus. Well, as it turns out, it was none of that. It was like he was trying to do something different with how he got paid. He wanted to be paid as an LLC. And they obviously, when they, you know, I'm sure when the Bears heard it, they went like, wait a second. And they went to the NFL, and the NFL said they want to do what? I'm sure that's what took them. And as they tried to figure out, can we do it? Is it permissible to do it? Blah, 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 blah. And it happened. But I mean, I just think it's interesting that, you know, he's trying to find another way to maximize his earnings, which I think is something we would all do.
And this is why I said him having a team of business lawyers versus an agent was going to be a problem. They tried to skirt the system to save him money, and the NFL looked into it, and they probably contacted the IRS about this. And the IRS said, you better fucking not.
You won't get in trouble.
In the stuff that we've read, though, I've seen, it's not where the IRS said you can't do it. It was just the NFL said, well, we won't allow it. It had nothing to do with the federal. They didn't cite the federal law or anything like that. They said, no, we're not going to let it happen.
No, I'm saying behind closed doors because this contract negotiation went on for days, correct?
Probably 4 weeks.
Behind closed doors, after those meetings were done for the day, you don't think the NFL called the IRS and said, hey, let me
I do.
medical. This is what's going on. What would happen? He goes, oh yeah, we're going to be looking into that.
So Joe could it be maybe more where, okay, let's walk the dog on this, right? So the Caleb's team goes to the Bears and says, here's what we want to do. The Bears go, ooh, that's different. Let me see if we can even do that. And they go to the NFL and says, hey, we got a guy who wants to do this with his contract. Be an LLC. We pay the LLC, not him directly. I mean, look, we do it with contractors, right? Our contractors an LLC that we pay that does our whatever, blah, blah, blah. And the NFL goes, ooh, that's interesting. Let us do our due diligence. They probably go to the IRS. And the IRS says, well, and the reason I go to you is because maybe you think that the IRS said, well, yeah, you can do it, but now there's certain liabilities that you get put on the hook for, or the Bears get put on the hook for versus the player?
See, that was my argument, was like that the NFL, by doing so, would open themselves up to liabilities, because what occurred to me is that by like what Caleb was trying to do is a really smart move, because number one, like as an LLC, he's not making personal income, right? Like, so the corporation, the LLC would pay corporate tax, which currently is at 21%, which is a lot less than what he would pay in personal income in federal tax. But if you look at the political climate, like Trump just said he's going to lower the corporate tax rate to 15% if he gets elected. So Caleb his lawyers could potentially be looking at that too and saying, hey, we could even cut that 21% and you could only be paying 15% total tax on your entire contract, right?
So where's the liability come in though for the Bears / NFL though?
Because if the NFL is allowing these players to skirt personal income tax, then that it's going to affect their bottom line as well, and the IRS is going to be like, hey, you're allowing, you're basically opening up a loophole that we didn't allow, and so we're going to make you personally liable because you're the one paying these guys.
Okay, so Isaac, let me go to you then, because some of you guys think of football, but we're talking taxes, but this is part of the business of football. So let me go to Isaac though. Isaac, question: how is this different than any other entity that pays contractors or LLCs? I mean, if all these players become LLC contractors, where the NFL franchises then paying their LLC for services, be it a person on the field, right? And it could be actually, if you think about it, couldn't it also open it up where part of that they could also include other aspects of business, right? And paying the LLC. I mean, how is this different than any other business doing it? And you're on mute, so unmute yourself.
First of all, yeah, I did that because my son's always yelling in my ear. What you call it? But first of all, there's 9 rules. There's 9 rules to what defies a person as an employee and what defies a person as an independent contractor. Now, independent contractor brings his own tools. He works on his own hours. He takes his own breaks. He takes his, In Caleb's case, he's not an independent contractor. They're providing him the tools. They're providing him work hours or the days that he works.
When to show up, all that.
Schedule, all that. If you look at that rule, and that's what that's what I'm saying. That's what the IRS and the FTB will hit him with. Like, hey, you're trying to say you're an independent contractor, but you're not. Your employee's telling you when to work. Your employee's providing you the tools. The tools is his helmet, his pads.
Right. So is that, am I making the delineation right though when I'm calling him an independent contractor under an LLC? Is that correct the way I'm doing that?
No, because he in this case he's not an independent. I mean, he's trying to make himself an independent contractor.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If he does an LLC, that's why I'll make sure I'm setting the table correct in this argument, right? If the contract is to pay the LLC, and he's saying that he himself is an independent contractor or an employee of the LLC, and that would still fall under the independent contractor rules, correct?
I mean, if he's trying to make it like that, then yes. I mean, in his own, world of him doing that. But
I'm just saying, any athlete, if they get paid as an LLC, does that make them an independent contractor? Like, am I setting the table right? I think we just lost Isaac. So maybe JB, you'll know this. As an LLC, if let's say the Lions, pay Goff as an LLC versus Jared Goff, the individual, does that mean Jared Goff LLC Enterprises LLC, right? When Goff now plays for the Lions, is he playing as a subcontracted worker to the Lions via the LLC, or is that different? You know what I'm saying? Am I setting the table right?
It's different because you can't. Isaac just laid it out for you.
Okay.
You cannot be an independent subcontractor.
Right.
It's the tools, the schedule, and everything.
That's what I'm trying to make sure is that I'm setting it right, so that by creating the LLC, the player then automatically becomes an independent contractor. That's what I'm trying to get at, right? If it's an LLC, the player.
But that's the sticky part. You cannot be.
No, but JB, I get that. Let me go back to Isaac. Isaac, the question I'm trying to ask here is this: if let's say the Bears did this, let's say they were allowed to do it, and the NFL didn't say no, and they did it, and the Bears play whatever Quarterback Inc. LLC. At that point, does Caleb become an independent contractor, or are there other ways in which he's playing where it's not an independent contractor? Or is that the only way
he's like to me, like it's a clear-cut case for the IRS or the FTB to make an argument he's an employee. Like, as much as he tries to do it, because for one, he has an owner that's telling him what to do. You know what I mean? Like, right. You know what I mean? Like when to work, when to
Well,
suit up.
so the owner's telling the LLC when the person needs to be there. I mean, it's in a way it's kind of creating a buffer level. I get it. At the end of the day, it's I understand what you're saying, but I'm trying to like let's look at all angles here, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand because I get it. If he's a contractor, he provides his own tools, his own brake, blah blah blah. But the Bears would then be contracting Quarterback Inc. LLC to play the quarterback position for Chicago Bears. You know, how does he avoid the direct employee thing without being an independent contractor, I guess, is the question, or is there no way to avoid that?
You know, this is also like, you know what you can relate this to? Scabs, right? You know, when people go on strike and somebody fills in their position,
point, John.
right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Is this basically what they do is come in and, you know, they work, but they're not an employee, but they're an independent contractor. I think this is kind of the motion that Caleb was trying to do, is not necessarily be a scab, but, you know, work under his own, you know what I mean, entity, work under his own rules and everything. But it's going to be just like one of the comments said, it could get messy because the government is still going to come after him and be like, hey.
I think this is interesting too, John. Actually, it's a good question. What happens if he's injured? If he was an LLC, does that mean the team can kind of, you know, wipe their hands of it and say, well, we don't have to provide you anything. You're an LLC. The LLC needs to provide.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And
If he's an independent contractor, they can cut ties with him at any time. You know what I mean? Because he's an independent contractor. He's not part of the company. He's not part of, you know what I mean, what's paying you. He's not part of, you know what I mean, the rules that go by every employee under the house, you know, so they can cut ties with him. I mean, they that's basically business.
I mean, look, I think this is an interesting conversation as we filled over 40 minutes with it already, because we've talked, like I said in the past, about, you know, the money these players make and how much of it they really don't keep. And I don't think we'd heard this before in the NFL. And, you know, it's innovative. It's definitely outside the box thinking. As far as like, oh, we're trying to use a loophole. Yeah, we all do. If you're sitting at home and you get ready to do your taxes and there's a loophole that can save you even $15 and it's legal, guess what you're doing? You're doing that loophole to save you the $15, right? So what makes these players any different than any of us? I mean, if there's a loophole, you take advantage of it, don't you, Dom? I mean, if you have a loophole in your taxes, you're taking it.
Well, you already see Arthur Blank.
Yeah, I was going to say Dom might not be the best one to ask. Well, maybe.
I mean, look at that money he be giving out. Like, I mean, it's a very smart business move, but you can't just come to the NFL and demand that. Like, you haven't even played one fucking down yet.
Well, I don't think
you're already making these things. Like JP said, you have business lawyers instead of an agent. Why do you have business lawyers?
Well, that's just thing, though, Dom. I mean, is it really?
I get it, but like,
I get what you're saying, but the point is,
Tom Brady.
It's business, right? So he's not making demands on the field. He's saying, I want to be paid as a business. I don't think that's maybe out of step. I mean, it's definitely different. I mean, let's say he did that. I mean, I think every player in the NFL would do it if they could. If
that's kind of like Tom Brady owning the Raiders and still coming back and playing for them. You can't do that. That's just not right. It's basically rules.
There's no rule against it.
John.
Hey,
come on. Me and Isaac cleared that up.
You know, Dom's been cleared.
Hold on. What was that you were saying though, JB? There's what?
There's no rule against a player being an owner, a shareholder owner, a primary owner. Yes. Like Mark Davis can't go and be an owner, but a guy that only owns 1% of a team to 5% of a team, which is a minor shareholder, he 100% could sign a contract and walk on that field and be a player/owner.
But would you want that?
You want your,
like,
listen to this. Think about it. I said it already. And then when Jimmy G got hurt to start that season, I said, oh, shit, it just happened. They said, what that? We may see the first player owner in NFL history. It'll be just like that movie that came out in the 70s. What was it? Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty. Remember that?
I'm too young for that.
I mean,
I watch oldies, but not.
I guess Ken, we never have to worry about a Packer player being a part owner because we've already got a million Packer owners that have no voting rights. But I mean, it's interesting though. You know, we've talked about on the show about the business side. Forget the fact that it's Caleb. I just think it's interesting that someone had this thought to look at being a player as a business. But at the end of the day, isn't it being a pro athlete? I mean, it's a business in today's world, right? Your brand and everything.
Think the NIL is making these college players smarter on, you know, getting money. You know what I mean? So, but you know what's the funny thing is the
trickle down effect of it.
Hold on, guys. Can we go to Ken? What was that, Ken?
It's the unforeseen trickle down effect of that NIL. Is not only are you getting the, well, you know, I think I deserve more than what the contract you're offering me is, but now they're trying to find all these different possible ways to manipulate the money of it because they've already have money from being in college, and if they can manipulate it then or not.
So Rob, hold on a second, JB. Let me go to Rob here. So I want to make sure we're getting everyone in here today. Okay. I mean, so Rob, question. Ken just mentioned about the NIL and players being smarter on money, and maybe this whole thing with Caleb is started the effect of that, where players are looking at how they can do better financially with the money they make for their long-term life. So I would say this is a good thing. I wouldn't you agree with that? Maybe it's a good thing that players are starting to think better or more long-term about their financial health versus the way it used to be?
I'm not against anybody trying to better their life or make their situation in a better. I'm not against that at all. Everybody tries to do it. It's the natural way of being a human. But I'm just this. I think a lot of this has already been tested. I think it's just like sign your contract. Let's get down to football. You're going to pay taxes like everybody else. I mean, you're only guaranteed two things in this world: death and taxes. Correct? I mean, ask Isaac. Everyone pays taxes. You can't get out of it. Everyone eventually dies. This guy just needs to play football. You should have. I'm okay if he really isn't about this. He should have just said, "Look, I told my lawyers, make sure this is done because I want to be in camp and I want to be focused." He didn't say that. He just said, "I got a team of lawyers," because he's trying to game the system. To me, that's just trying to get. And okay, you tried, you failed, you signed. Let's go.
Well, and look, I think as a player, I mean, he's doing just that, right? That's why they asked him the question. He said, "I'm not worried about the contract. They're working at. I'm working on playing."
That's your perception of it, Ken. I'm just saying.
That's what he said, though. He said, "I'm not worried about the contract side. That's what I have a team of lawyers for." So, I mean, to me,
said, I just want to get in there and play football. I let my team of lawyers handle this. I told them I want to be done. I don't want to be a problem to the team. I want this done, and so I can just focus on football. I didn't hear none of that.
But JB, in essence, isn't that what he said when he said, "I have a team of lawyers working the contract. I'm not concerned about that."
But he didn't say anything about playing football.
Right, he didn't add the extra piece. Okay.
Here's the other caveat to that. If you are an independent subcontractor with an LLC, you are no longer a part of the NFLPA, which means they do not have to represent you. They do not have to protect you from everything.
So maybe that could have been more the reason why the NFL said no versus the IRS is because of the contract with the NFLPA. So if that's the case, Isaac, if that's the case, when we get this next NFLPA, might we try to see a change by the NFLPA saying, "Hey, look, we want to allow players to get paid as an LLC"?
No, the NFLPA won't allow it because, you know what I mean, it's the CBA talks will just break down, or not CBA, but the talks between the owners and the players will break down. There'll be a lot of lockouts over it because they can't decide on what to do with it. And it'll drag on. You know what I mean?
Not interesting. This contract's been done for 3 days, and we've
talked. Well, no, JB, it is interesting in terms of this. I mean, look I get. Hold on, let me do something I haven't done this whole show. Put myself in the middle for once. Okay, I get how some of you are like, "Oh, he should have just signed the damn contract. He's a rookie and a blah 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 diva." Whatever. Fine. Okay. To look at it, because said here is now with NIL, players are becoming more astute about their money. They're thinking more about their financial health and well-being versus how it's been like, I better get this money and buy 5 clubs, 3 cars, 4 houses, right? They're trying to be smarter with their money, which isn't something we've been trying to get NFL players to be. So 3 years out of the league, they're not broke, destitute, and saying with a cup on the side of the road, say, please give me spare change so I can eat, right? This is a good thing. So a player, the way I look at it is this. A player is looking for a way to maximize his earning potential, which is something that every single one of us would do. It's no different. But it's because it's the NFL. Doesn't matter. It's business is business is business. The NFL doesn't care about Caleb Williams. The NFL doesn't care about Aaron St. Brown. They don't care about Jared Goff. They don't care about any of the players in that term. At the end of the day, it's business. So the fact that a player is trying to look at the situation and say, I want to do my contract this way, right? Because it maximizes my earning potential is no different than any of us doing it. Yes, he had a team of lawyers. And John Dorn, you were 100% correct. The Bears can only talk to Caleb. And I talked about that in the show on Monday, that I thought it was interesting the NFL didn't clamp down on the Bears talking to his lawyers because it violates the rules, which they sometimes enforce, sometimes don't with this situation. But at the end of the day, I think it is a business perspective because the business of football is still a business. And I don't think it's going to affect his play on the field. He wasn't saying I'm not going to play because of it. He said, this is how I'd want to do it. And then everyone did their due diligence. And if the NFLPA, if enough players go to the NFLPA and say, hey, this is interesting. And if it's legal, we want to try to do this. Then I can see the NFLPA trying to negotiate for it in the next rounds. Whether or not they're successful, well, that's another story. But from a business perspective, isn't it smart for the players to try to manage their money better?
Yeah, money-wise, yes. But now you might not be getting all the health benefits from the team. They no longer have to pay for your rehabilitation, for your surgeries. Now that you're an LLC, yeah, you saved all that money. But guess what? You're spending a hell of a lot more because now you got to be the one to pay to get your ACL reconnected,
right?
Or any of that type of nonsense. Shit, the team might even at that point charge you for using their facilities.
I mean, I agree with you, Ken. It's interesting. I think it depends on how they would word contracts and do stuff. But to the point, I don't think it's going to affect Caleb on the field. Obviously, it was all done before camp. He signed his contract before camp. He said he wasn't even concerned about the contract. The lawyers were doing it fine. I'll take that at face value. I think that it's not about Caleb. It's about the business side of it. I think from the business
caveat that I would say is I'd be slightly worried that he's doing all this. Is he so focused on his business aspect of it that he's not devoting the full time to football because he's trying to maximize his earning potential right now? I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying that it could be a problem field wise.
I mean, every player is trying to maximize their potential when they're doing a contract. Otherwise, Saquon would be a New York Giant.
Well yeah,
talking about a rookie
doing a little extra is what I'm saying.
Room.
But Rob, it has nothing to do with the CBA. What he was asking. Right, that has nothing to do with the CBA. He wasn't trying to get more money.
That's all he's trying to do.
He wasn't trying to, dude. It really. Wait, see, look at. Is he really trying to cheat by trying to match? How's that? If it's legal, it's not cheating. If it's legal, it's not cheating.
It's not legal. That's why he couldn't do it. That's why he couldn't do it.
Well, no, Rob, you don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, but you do.
I think Ken brings up a better point than you do. That if he's an LLC, then the team doesn't have to pay for certain things, and now he's on the hook.
Yes, bro.
So Isaac. Well, we still got time here. Was what Caleb? Yeah, Rob, don't be here. We're talking about the business of it. I mean, I get it. You're jaded because it's Caleb Williams is the Bear thing. Got it. Fine. We got that an hour ago. We're talking about business of football. You're just like, oh, it's Caleb, so automatically it must be bad. Isaac, would it have been? If the NFL had is there a league legally, was he would you say he was trying to cheat or just trying as a business, as a player or as a business trying to maximize money? Would you necessarily consider cheating to even explore the option?
No, I mean, if you don't ask, you don't know, right? You know what I mean? The thing is, if you don't ask, you don't know. Like, I mean, people assume things that it's not going to be bad. I mean, it's not going to be allowed. But if you don't ask, how are you going to know? You can read all the bylines of the NFL, PA books or NFL rules. But if you don't know a certain thing, if there's a gray area in the rule book, then maybe it's worth asking. And basically being monetized as well, that doesn't differ from just simply asking, hey, can I do this or not? And if it's not allowed, obviously NFL denied it, then it's not allowed.
Yeah,
but I got to bring up one thing, though.
Real quick, and I'll let you finish it out. Let's just say, for sake of argument, it was player X. Forget who the player was. That's inconsequential for the discussion. It doesn't matter who the player was. Just the fact that a player in the NFL wanted to do this. Go ahead, Isaac.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just. I mean, I know. And Rob's point is that you don't want your first time, your first overall, the guy that's going to lead basically your team into this kind of mess, because it kind of distracts a little bit from football. That's where like Rob's coming from, and I understand that part of it. But at the same time, I understand Caleb's part of it on monetizing, finding a different way to have him maximize what he's getting paid. Because what does the NFL stand for? Not for long. You know what I mean? Yeah. For a lot of players. Yeah. Caleb, who knows? Caleb can go play out there. He could be a really great player. And then somebody comes and breaks his kneecap. He never could be the same again.
Like Johnny Knox. Yeah. Johnny Knox, Bears receiver, had a promising career.
RG3 had one of the best promising careers as a football player, and now he can't. Now he's stuck being an analyst and can't be out there in the football field. But I was gonna say the best quote ever came from The Simpsons. Is the writers are brilliant. Fat Tony, right? One of the characters. One of his guys, right, comes up to him and goes, "Hey, we steal from here, we steal from there. What about we steal from the government?" And one of them, Fat Tony, goes, "No, we should never steal from the government. They will, we will never win." So, it's one thing to try to, figure out ways to go around, the government on paying taxes, but in the end, they're gonna get you because you're gonna keep on trying to find a way, and they're gonna keep on finding another way to go after you. The number one bad word in accounting and business is audit. Anytime you hear audit, people freak the hell out.
Run.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think I think the business side of football is obviously something we all probably should be more educated on. At the end of the day, let's not fool ourselves. It's a business.
Yeah.
The NFL is there to make money. The teams are there to make money. The players, while they love playing the game, are there to make money. Otherwise, we wouldn't see people saying, well, I want $35 million a year to catch a football, right? Or whatever the money is. Or I want $60 million a year to throw a football. At the end of the day, they're all there to make money. And it's probably, I'm sure this will stir other discussions about this within their business community. Like, okay, because we obviously don't know why the NFL said no. I didn't see that. They just said, all was reported, the NFL said no. Okay, so obviously the lawyers and everything, their questions obviously should be why, and go from there. And look, if players, we've talked before, if players, when they sign a contract and that $60 million, by the end of the day, when everyone gets paid, all the taxes go out, they see 20. Okay, it makes sense to me if they can figure out a way that 20 becomes 25 or 26. Hey, that's what we would all do as individuals too. So something to think about today, something to think about on the weekend as we get practices this weekend. We'll have actual football to talk about Monday, as we will overhype what happens on the weekend or overplay it. Thank you everyone for watching us. week. Thank you for engaging this conversation today. But on that final bad tax advice that we just gave, have a great weekend, everyone.
Bears suck.
This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Get all your NFL news here first. The daily podcasts are Ken and Ken in the Morning, Lions Talk with Smoking Jeremy B, Around the Indoor Football World, Shield TV, and The Big Football Show. The afternoon podcasts are Valhalla Hour, Grosef Sports, WCFL Dolphins Talk, The Cheap Seats, Bodkin Show, and Spirit of Detroit Podcast. The nightly podcasts are Hallis Hall Report, Frozen Tundra Network, Wrestling Roundup, Skull Gang 365, First and 10 with Foz, Prime Sports World, The Man Cave, Prim and Proper Sports, Spitballin' Podcast, Lions Fan Cave Chat, 313 Den Podcast, Puckett, The Guys Huddle, Main Event Football Show, Let's Talk Sports, The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and Off the Rails. Hope you enjoy